Okay, welcome to Firefighting Today, the weekly roundtable show. We talk about all sorts of things fire service related here. We've taken the summer off. We had a little summer hiatus, but we are back. Tonight's topic is what's on your mind. So we're going to talk about the things that are on your mind. And as always, if you happen to be watching us live on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a YouTube comment. And you can interact with the panel. We'll be happy to bring your comment into the discussion and bring you right into the what we're talking about here tonight. So, introductions. So I am Pete Lamb. I'm the author of PeteLamb.com. I'm also the host of the Firefighter Training Podcast, and I'm the host here this evening. So let's get the panel introduced, and then we'll get started. Adam.
Hey guys, Adam Ginley, coming from Kellogg, Iowa, captain with the Kellogg Fire Department. We're all volunteer. Just got on with another department, Stoli Fire, help them out during the day.
Perfect. Deputy Joe.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joe Pernesti. I'm from the city of Elyria, Ohio, Fire Department, Northern Ohio, and I am a assistant chief, a shift commander.
All right, see, good. Yeah, that was subtle, but I like it. Assistant Chief. Sorry about that, Joe. Ethan.
Hi, Pete. Ethan Bansick from the city of Lorain, Ohio, and founder of Pass It On Fire Training.
All right, good stuff that Ethan has. If you haven't been over there, take a look at Ethan's work over there. Greg, say hello.
Everybody, Greg Howard. I'm the deputy chief for the Dashwood Volunteer Fire Department.
Right, and your location is, where's Dashwood?
We're going to put that on our shirts next year. It's on Vancouver Island in British Columbia.
Well, I like to say that. It gives the show a little international flavor. You know what I mean? Joe Starnes, say hello.
Hi, I'm Joe Starnes. I'm in Shelby, North Carolina. My walk of fame is Project Kill the Flashover. I'm a PIO for Oak Grove Volunteer Fire Department in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. And thank you for having me on, Chief.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. New roundtable tonight. John, say hello.
Oh, thank you for having me, Pete. My name is John Cagnell. I'm a retired battalion chief out of North Providence, Rhode Island. I'm the founder of Lead It and the rescue operations manager for the state USAR team.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you having you here. Rob Fling, say hello.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Nice to be back. Thanks for having me. I'm Rob Fling. I'm the chief of department for the Dix Hills Fire Department located on Long Island. I'm the founder and president of Face Peace On, a writer, author, speaker. I keep busy.
Yeah, just an all-around good guy. And
I don't know about that, but I do keep busy.
Last but certainly not least, Warren, say hello.
Hi, Warren Whitley here, retired assistant chief with Prince William County, Virginia Fire and Rescue, relocated to North Carolina, the opposite end from Joe, who I help out with Kill the Flashover when I can. And I see, Rob, you have the nice professional microphone set up. Way to go.
I do. I rented it.
I love it. It's going to be that kind of night. See, we took the summer off and we're all going after it. I like it. No, we try to do it up here when we can. So we took the summer off. A lot of stuff going on. Our viewership was usually low in the summer anyway, so we took that off. Tonight is just a general roundtable, but I want to make the announcement. We got some viewers popping up now. So viewers that are listening, if you want to leave a YouTube comment, feel free to do so. You can do that, and we'll bring it right into the panel. What's on your mind? But we also have next week. We're going to have a close call case history. We've got a church fire. Assistant Chief Joe is going to work on that and give us that. And then the following week, the 27th, we also have a new product demonstration. We're talking about the product called Hydrovent. So we'll bring that onto the show. So we got a couple of weeks in the bag already here, and we're always open for ideas. If anyone is viewing and you would like to be on a future roundtable, just hit me with an email, and we'll make sure that we get you on the panel. So the question here tonight is what's on your mind. I've got some topics to be discussed, but what is the panel? Anybody got something they want to toss out while we're while we're broadcasting.
Chief, I want to throw something too.
Yeah, go ahead,
Our
Adam.
little volunteer world here. I've talked to Lamb a few times. What's everybody doing for recruitment for the volunteer side? We are way down. We put an advertisement in for the little chronicle that goes out in our little community. Our city council is aware of it. Our township's now aware of our recruitment problem. What's everybody doing to maybe get people interested?
Yeah, that's a good one. Anybody want to talk about that? Rob, you've got a big organization. How many folks you got, Rob?
We're currently around 175.
Okay, so it's not doesn't sound like that's your issue immediately, but what are you talking about?
I fight all the time. A grant? I'm sorry?
No, what are you doing?
We actually just won a grant for recruitment and retention. So we're looking to do a lot of print advertising. Our open house is coming up in a couple of weeks. We generally draw around 800 to 1,000 people to our open house. So we shake a lot of hands, kiss a lot of babies, and make a lot of people interested in what we do. If I could give you any advice, I would be to definitely get your name out there. Let everybody know. It's public relations. Let everybody know that this is what we do, this is how we do it, and be perfectly honest with some people. I mean, we get a lot of people in the door that want to be firefighters and that want to be EMS people, but when you lay it all down on the line, it's not a really easy thing to do anymore, time-wise. So that's something you have to be honest, because we lose a lot of people. I'm not going to lie to you. We get a lot of people in the front door. We read a lot of people into the department, but they don't last a year. And that has a lot to do with the amount of time that it takes. It's over 150 hours to become an EMT nowadays. It's probably 5-6 months for firefighter 1. People have to have the time commitment, and it's something that you're going to struggle with. There's no doubt, because people have 2 jobs, people have families, people have this, that, or the other thing. Everybody's busy nowadays.
Yeah. Good. I'd like to hear from Greg too, but let's just take a look. John Dixon's paying attention to us tonight. Thank you, John. I appreciate you being here, and he's saying thanks that the roundtables are back. So, John, thanks for being here. I appreciate your interest and support always. Greg, what are you doing up there? How are you managing the recruitment retention issue? Seems like you might be muted, Greg.
That was bound to happen sooner or later, wasn't it? we went after it really strategically, and there's a ton of great resources available. If you just get on the Google and say recruiting and retention in the volunteer fire service. One of the best ones came out, I think, from the USFA about 3 years ago. But it's a lot of things. I look at success for us as better retention rather than more recruiting, because we run into the same problem. It takes us about 2 years to make someone productive on the truck. And we were losing a lot of people, about the bottom third of the roster at 2 years. So we're starting to see a bump in that. Our recruiting's also going up. But it's a lot of things like incentives. So when people are in 2 years, they get measured for their own turnout gear rather than being in used stuff. 3 years, Class A uniforms. We're trying to do things quarterly where they bring their families in. And also, we open the door up to some non-traditional roles, so administration, volunteers, people who are doing some cooking when we have long events and that sort of thing. But what I would do is really get into some of the articles, because they have some great ideas about recruiting and retention. A big one is what Chief Fling said. We started a Facebook page for the fire department, and during some local wildfires, we were pumping out information to the local area, and the following on the Facebook page went from a couple hundred people up to a couple thousand people right away. So we used that as a pub ad. We banged the drum on public education on that, but it's also up our visibility to the volunteer groups, and we're starting to get more people knocking on the door.
Yeah, just a question, Greg, while I got you. What is the population of your response area?
We're only about 3,500 people.
Okay, 3,500. Rob, any idea what your population is?
We are 26 square miles with approximately 3,500 private dwellings, I believe.
Okay. So, Adam, you've got a little bit less than that. Your response area, your pool of available people is less. But did any of that help you? Did that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do some googling and take a look at some of the articles.
Yeah, yeah. And both of these guys on the panel's pretty good about sharing data. So I'm sure if you reached out to either of those guys, you'd be happy to do that. Joe, Chief Joe, you had some news media you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you saw it, and I first saw it on Stater 911 his website. He had posted a Washington Post article written by a professor that has a degree in economics, and he basically describes that today the fires are down, but firefighting is jobs are up. That there's more firefighters now even though fire is down, and he basically went on to say that the typical anti-fire rant of taking big ladder trucks on medical calls, and we only work out, and the same song and dance. But the thing that it shows though is that when a media organization like the Washington Post, as respected as it is, puts something out, it gets picked up by a lot of newspapers. And in my city, it's always a fight to keep staffing. We've had tons and tons of cuts and closures and so on, and the newspaper today in my hometown basically reprinted it on the front section of the Sunday paper just to stir the pot, and I'm sure it worked. We get I wouldn't say accosted, but a lot of times our crews get talked to at grocery stores, and a lot of negativity in my town.
Yeah, so I think that the article, I read the article, and it was I don't know if I've become numb after this period of time. I mean, it was more of the same in my opinion. But some of what they're saying is true, right? Some of what they say is true, and I think what happens is, I've often said to the troops, and I say it when I'm teaching, if we don't police our own, someone will come in and police us for us. And police, use that term whichever way you want. When the citizens begin to take a critical eye at performance, I think that in some cases, and I agree with you, it spreads like wildfire. There's no question. It spreads like wildfire. My comrade here, John, we're from the state of Rhode Island. Our capital city fire department is under major attack. We have, right now at this point, we have 3 fire departments that are bankrupt. The actual fire protection district is bankrupt. We are losing manpower. It's pretty difficult here in the Northeast right now. The environment is ripe for that sort of stuff. Warren, did you have any of those challenges, or did you have, there's always the grocery store argument, but Warren, did you have any challenges with negative PR?
Yeah, occasionally, but most of it was the typical grocery store issue, or why is the fire marshal enforcing fire lanes when I just had to run into the store? So generally, the negative interactions were because the people got caught doing something, and if you ask them the question, how come they're so against us or down on us, generally they had an adverse act from the fire department upon them because of enforcement or something else, so that was their retaliation.
Yeah, it's generally people that have had a negative something. Their nephew didn't get hired, something, or what have you. And then I also saw the comment that there is a good amount of discussion on privatization. There's no question. Privatization gets mentioned often. It's very common to have that. John, your thoughts on this, the negative press on fire department issues? John, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do actually. The worst thing you can do is entertaining. you know, we get a lot of that stuff here, especially in our end of the block, so to speak, Pete. But you know, the more you engage in the fight, the more the rhetoric continues. The best thing you can do is not entertain it. Walk away, or if you're going to talk, educate. That's probably the best way to get someone on your side, is to actually, you know, tell them what exactly it is we do. And we talked earlier offline about how, yeah, fires are down, and you know, we don't running out of fires every day. We all know that. But the other thing that we do, you know, is to educate the public on what we do 24/7, and that is, you know, we're social workers, we're crisis intervention officers, we're constantly maintaining equipment, we're in constant forms of continuing education programs for certification. So it's not really about, you know, fighting fires. But the worst thing you can do is engage in the rhetoric. I always used to tell the guys on my job is, you know, don't reply back negatively. Try to maintain that positive approach to what it is you do and why you do it. You know, don't get into a battle about you know, what we make and what we deserve or shouldn't, you know, what we don't deserve. It's more of you know, educate the public about what it is we do. And the other thing is to get out in the public eye in a more favorable fashion too. I mean, you can't be standing outside the firehouse sitting on a chair looking like you're doing nothing. That's like the worst thing you can do. So, you know, show the public what it is you do and educate them.
Yeah, I think you're right, John, to some degree. I guess the challenge comes when you talk about the education has to start before the attack begins, though. That's the problem. See, we wait for the attack, and then we go on the educational campaign. That educational campaign has to occur first. A couple of our listeners had questions about privatization. Typically, they talk about private, for-profit fire departments or ambulance service, EMS services. That's part of the typical discussion. And the other discussion that kills the fire service and public safety in general, our brothers in blue, public safety in general, is if you work in a socioeconomic area where the economy is bad and people are out of work, your job looks pretty good to those people. And you know, firefighters might be making more money than the common citizen, and that typically can cause some issues when that happens. So there's some economic realities that we all have to face as well. Quick comment, I just want to acknowledge, thank you, Christine. Christine has been with us for a lot of them, so I appreciate your support, Christine. You're always out there. So if you have a YouTube comment, just enter that YouTube comment and we'll bring it right back into the scene here. Anything else on that issue before we jump off on another issue?
Yeah,
Let me throw one in there, Chief.
Yeah, sure. Please, Joe, go ahead.
You said something key. I think that PR is PRing. It's not doing it when it's bad, like you said. It's all the time. I also think that our members need education on what they represent in the street and who they represent and how they do it. I think that having a member show up at functions that the authority having jurisdiction has is critical. I think people need to be dressed out and there, and nothing else hold the door, as we say. There's an appearance. We don't want to show up when somebody's mad at us. Is the only time we show up. We got to show up every day. Our social media blitz we do here has to do with everything from storms that come through to public events like the cancer event today. All that's put out on social media. You have to present what you're worth and your value all the time. You can't just do it when it gets bad.
Right. I mentioned something on a podcast this week. Was it this week or last week? I don't know. Time is a blur here. All of us have suffered through weather for however old we are. we've had weather, right? Weather occurs, stuff happens. And I made the point in the podcast about, have you noticed how the Weather Channel now will say 50 million people are in the path of a storm? So why don't we take that same tack and say, Rob, 3,500 people today in Dix Hills are posed by a threat of fire, right? And so, it's the way you present yourself. And social media can be our enemy, but social media can do a lot of cool things for us. And you see, we're talking about, they're fear-mongering. And I don't say go quite that far, but I think that, we could show that we are the protection for folks regardless, and all hazards. I think John was mentioning sort of the all hazards approach that the fire department has taken on. So I think that's important. What about over the summer? We were off over the summer. Let's shift gears a little bit. We had 2 firefighters shot. And most recently, we had a home booby trapped. Ethan, you might have those. You had that on your list. If you got a couple of quick facts about that incident in New York.
Yeah, Pete, that was in the city of Endicott, New York. It was an old synagogue, currently a video production business. One-story, ordinary constructed building.
And what were the actual booby traps there? They had some propane, they had some gasoline. What was the nature of that?
Yeah, propane, gasoline. The quote in the newspaper was it was booby trapped from the basement to the attic. Also, the quote that stuck out to me in the newspaper said, if what was intended to happen had happened, there wouldn't be any buildings left on the street, and there'd be a lot of dead firemen. So again, a real close call. It just reinforces the point again. Continuous size up, watching the building, reading the smoke, reading the fire.
Yeah, and reading stuff that we normally wouldn't be looking at. I mean, somebody was paying attention when they saw that tripwire. And that's, I can look at smoke, I can look at forcible entry options all day long, but I'm not thinking tripwires. And the other one, to add insult to injury, is that, maybe 4 days from the taping of this show, 4 days ago, we had a firefighter deliberately run down while collecting for Muscular Dystrophy Association. So the topic that I'm kind of alluding to is firefighters under, that happens once in a while. We used to hear about it. I mean, there's a couple of variables here. I think we hear about a lot more stuff because social media brings it to us faster. But I also think that the frequency of incidents is becoming greater. And I think that when people attack police officers, I think we're just collateral damage sometimes. I think we wear a uniform, we represent a governmental function, and I think that sometimes we could, I think we're in a changing world. I think we're in a changing world. Chief Joe, you got a comment on that?
Well, I think we this is almost going back to the 60s when there was a lot of civil unrest, and a lot of people, you read stories or you hear about the establishment, or and I think it's just a violent society these days, and it doesn't matter what uniform you're wearing, you got to be on your toes. There are some evil people out there, but the bottom line is, if someone wakes up wanting to take out a bunch of police officers or firefighters, if you can be as safe as can be, and I don't know, I think sometimes there's just only so much you can do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, if somebody is intent on hurting you, you could be the best fireground officer or the best size-up person in the world. If somebody is, they don't call them traps for nothing, right? It's a trap. It's designed to trick you. It's designed to deceive you in some way. And I just think it's one of those other hazards. So, we got a bunch of experience on the panel. So Warren, I'm the first guy in the room, and I discover the booby hatch, the booby trap. Booby hatch, yeah, I lived there I was actually in charge of that sometimes. But the booby trap, what do I do? I'm the first fire officer. I'm in the room. I discover something. Let's talk about some action items for our listeners. Just throw out your first couple actions you would do here.
Well, I think the first is tell everybody to stop, don't move,
Right.
then figure out how to extricate yourself from the building safely, and then just make sure everybody's back at a safe distance, and call the EOD, whoever you need to come in and help you.
Yeah, so it's, go ahead.
I was going to say, we had one, I want to say it was 99 or so, or it must have been the 2000s. Yeah, it was at Engine 2. Anyway, guy had completely booby-trapped his property and house with pipe bombs. And the only thing that saved the fireman is that he accidentally killed himself arming one of his pipe bombs.
Right, right. Yeah, so, the rules of thumb here are recognition, obviously, alerting the incident commander immediately, understanding the scope and scale of what you might have. We say evacuate a safe distance. Well, that may be more than running and hiding behind ladder one. That may be more significant. We could be talking several hundred feet, etc. We always talk about people. Whatever is between the explosion and you is going to move. If that's glass, it's going to move toward you. If it's bricks, it's going to move towards you. It's all of those things. So that certainly makes some sense. Any other thoughts? Has anybody had another incident like that? The other one that kind of falls in that category, one is malicious intent, and the other one is, and I think, Greg, you just had a recent sort of a mobile incident, is these folks that are chemical suicides, right? They are a great risk to us as well. Although the intent is not for us, the potential of risk is something greater than we've dealt with in the past. So that's something. We got a comment here. What is the panel thinking about? What are the panel's thoughts on arming firefighters, or at least the tour commander? And so I have some thoughts on that, but anybody on the panel, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's just complicating what we have to do already. I mean, you talk about force protection. There are needs for force protection. That's why we hold fast rolling into certain types of incidents until law enforcement arrives. I think that would extremely complicate the situation if we started arming firefighters. That's a whole nother ball game. You look at just what a police officer has to go through regarding the intensity and training that they have to do prior to being certified to carry a weapon. I see no direct need for that for us. That's what we have law enforcement for.
Yeah, I think it's a mix of the jobs. I think I think the PD is better served to do that. I just had this whole vision. I'm old enough. I can just see like Andy Griffith with me being the incident commander with just one bullet, because they would only allow me to have one in my pocket or something. So anybody else gets? Chief Joe, you had a comment about that in the chat room. What are you thinking?
No, absolutely not. I think you're going down the path of public safety officers then, and we were talking previously about bad political environments, and that never works well. If your heart have problems, you go to a cardiologist, not a brain surgeon. That's why we're specialized in what we're specialized in, and that's fires and rescue and emergencies.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I know that in some, Chief Ling is talking about it, and certainly in some of the inner cities, it's become very common now, is the wearing of vests. Medics are wearing vests, Kevlar vests, protective vests. That's becoming more and more common. But carrying the firearm, right? So the point is, we need to be out of that space. We need to, right? If that is a danger to us, we need to get out of that space. I think that's the important piece there. So Tim is with us. Thank you, Tim. Great to have you here. No problem that you're in late. We appreciate your input. So we'll get those roundtables back where they belong. If you are watching us live on YouTube, feel free to leave a YouTube comment. We can bring that comment right into the panel. You've seen us bring in several tonight, so we can bring that comment right into the panel, and you can take part in the discussion. What else we got? What else is on our mind? Anybody?
Well, I was just going to say, I'll be the one to say, the Slice RS debates, I'm not real sure where all this has come from. I don't know if any of you have been following it. All of a sudden there's been an upkick in articles against it, and it's just more confusion, I think, for firefighters. But I was just curious what any of you thought, or anybody listening.
All right, so what about the slicers debate, right? So, and it has become a debate. So we got a couple of topics to talk about. We got the whole UL NIST. We have Joe here, Warren, some folks, myself, Kill the Flashover folks. We've got fire behavior. I spent some time talking to Joe this week. I think that we have had I think we've come to a discussion point at fire behavior that I don't think anybody cares anymore. I think we're at a saturation point. I think we have saturated social media, and I believe that, in fact, we're at a saturation point, and we're losing effectiveness. I don't care if you're for slices, against slices, whatever it is. I think that we've reached a saturation point. Question, Rob, do you want to expand on that? Because I think that's a great point. You know, everybody is critical of slicers because R for rescue is toward the bottom of the acronym,
Right.
but it's actually considered
It's an action of opportunity.
right.
It doesn't mean that it becomes not a priority of ours. It means that if you come across a life hazard, it's your obligation to take care of that life hazard, whether it's in the beginning of the operation, the middle of the operation, or whenever it comes about. It's an action of opportunity. When the opportunity presents itself, you take care of it.
Right. I think that's well said. I think you defined it properly. I think you did. What are you hearing? I'd like to hear from Ethan as a young student. There's probably nobody here that surfs the web more than Ethan. What are you thinking, Ethan? Have we reached the saturation? Is there confusion between all the speakers? What are you thinking?
No, I think Rob hit it right on the head. People aren't reading it fully. They're not understanding what action of opportunity means. They're seeing it second to last on the list, and they're thinking that is exactly when we're going to perform it, and we're going to go right down that list in that order. I think UL and NIST are still valid resources out there. Definitely stuff to look at. I'd be curious to hear if anyone's actually implemented that with a policy. Or if it's just information that you've discussed.
All right, that's interesting. Does anybody have a working policy on the new science, if you will?
No.
Okay. So I believe we've sufficiently pulled this pin. I believe 7 or 8 seconds have left. Mr. Stans, do you have any comment on this?
Hold on while I get under the desk, Pete.
I really don't have anything to.
Go ahead. What do you got?
No, I don't know. I think what we've done is we've got on a cabbage diet, and we're tired of cabbage. I don't think we should stop making slop. I think part of this is simply that it's been so controversial. Like we normally do in the fire service, we'll take something and ride it to the horse collar. I think we've only scratched the surface on the things we're learning and changing. That's the other thing. I don't think we're even close. I think people are getting tired before we ever left the barn. There's so much stuff that we need to learn to do that is just not. It's critical that we don't give up on it. And I think it's just like anything else in life. I think it's one piece of what we do, and we should never do one thing all the time. We should do what we need to do to run our jobs and do our mission. And so what I've seen people who are doing it reasonably well is they've just taken their training section of their department and in their fireside, and they're just constantly trying to learn what they can do better for what they do, no matter what it is. If they do it in EMS, they do it in fire. Well, I mean, in extrication, why wouldn't they do it in fire suppression? What's the difference in learning to use a curtain than it is to learn to use a new nozzle? I don't know if it's anything different than that. But I would agree with you. What they're tired of is the fussing. I think what they're really tired of is the hate and the fussing. I think that's the thing. They're tired of bad behaviors. So anyway, that's it.
All right, Warren, I got to hear from you on this subject.
Well, of course you do. I think the major issue is, and people are tired of hearing it, is because we have people arguing, especially in social media, and I stay out of all those conversations on purpose, is they're cherry picking things that either look cool or the little piece they think they understand, and then they're trying to spin it in whatever way that fits their agenda. So one, they don't have a complete understanding of a fraction of the fire science, then how to apply, if they had the knowledge, how to apply it tactically for safer operations. So I think what we need to do is, one, people need to quit arguing about it and start reading, like Rob said in one of the chat room things here. In order for you to be a professional, you have to be able to profess, and to be able to profess, you have to become an expert. Okay, most firefighters around the world are not experts in their job because the fire science is so, I wouldn't say complicated, even though it is, it's understandable, but they only scratch the surface and think they know it because Joe Blow told them something, or they had one experience and things turned out the way they did, most likely by luck. And they take that same experience and try to apply it to every situation. So I think really if we could figure out how to take a step back and figure out a good holistic approach of how to solve this problem and get the knowledge that's out there. If we looked at UL and NIST, they don't have the whole picture either. Basically, UL's hamstrung because they can't really advocate for any particular tactic or anything just because they're a for-profit and have the company's direction on what they can talk about. And NIST is on the right track as well, but they're so underfunded that Dan can't get everything done he needs to get done. And then you have, us folks with KTF and other folks trying to assemble everything they can't do into some semblance for, to help the firefighter out as well. So
good stuff. Let's hear from
controversial enough.
Let's hear from somebody who went to a Slices program. So let me get Tim. Tim Lasley's out there. He said he took the Slices class. He enjoyed it. Had to train the trainer this summer. It was excellent takeaways and reinforcements of application of water and ventilation. So there's somebody who's seen it from that perspective. The other comment is Christine was out there in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Fantastic experience, and she got some hands-on, directly asking questions to some big names. That's Joe is only 3 letters. It's not that big a name, really. Don't ever say. Thank you, Christine, for that, and that seems like a positive experience for you. I think that my question is, it's not the. I think Joe hit my point of view. We talked about it at length the other day. Was you know what? I'm okay with this stuff. I'm okay with the information. I'm okay with all of that. But I think that the choosing of sides, the fractioning of groups. If we're all in fact talking about the same thing, the groups certainly seem to be a bit fractured as they discuss them in social media. I also saw a comment come by, people argue on social media. I'm shocked to hear that. I think that was Deputy Greg that threw that one out. So good stuff. Was that what you were thinking there, Chief Joe?
Well, yeah, but I will say this. You know what I worry about? I wanted to, and I don't want to keep going on this, but I'm big into studying, line of duty deaths, as you know. What do you think? What do you guys think would happen when the NIOSH reports start to put some of this information and study as not the cause, but fire departments should invest in SLICE or whatever training. Will that turn off? Will that awesome piece of information, the line of duty death reports and studies, turn
I don't think
people
you'll
off
ever see something like that.
I disagree, gentlemen. What was the last one? Was it Ethan? I want to say it was out your way. Was it Ohio?
That was the Toledo one.
Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah.
They actually referenced not. I don't think. Well, they may have said slices. I'm not sure, but they did talk about multiple flow paths and multiple openings created by firefighters. So I would not take that bet, John. I think it's coming closer.
No, I'm not saying that, but in regards to products, was he referring to products or operational?
I think I was referring to operations. That I guess I don't want to have a whole new argument of people downgrading these reports that are so important to the fire service because they put these recommendations in, and we've just created a whole new. You're putting sugar in the gas tank. I don't want to. I hope that doesn't happen, but I worry that it's going to.
Well, let me follow that a little bit more. If it happened, and if it was really true, are you suggesting it shouldn't be in the report?
No, I'm asking what your guys' opinions will be when the anti, fire behavior, we all know, start downgrading these reports because these reports say you need to do this or you should look into this, or that's what I'm asking, what your guys' opinions will be, or how do you fight that one, because it's going to come down the pike sooner or later, and now it's going to open up a whole new can of worms. That's what I worry about. I was just curious what you guys thought.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I was surprised. I think we were at Firehouse. I know there's some folks on the panel that are not high on NIOSH reports, and that's fine. Everybody's got a. I think that if you take the NIOSH report and you look at those recommendations and you figure out how does that apply to me? How does it affect me? And you make it a working document. I was down at Firehouse, and I forget who was doing the piece, but it was sort of like, well, don't worry about NIOSH reports. They're all boilerplate. Well, okay, I get that. I see that, and I'm not blind to that. But I certainly still read them and look at them because I think they do have some value. I'm not saying it should become your training manual, but I think that there are some takeaways there. I'm pro that. I did see a quick comment come by. Ethan stating that the Toledo report actually mentioned slices. I thought it might have. So I think the Pandora's box is open, Chief Joe. I think the box is open. So we're subject to that for sure.
Pete, if I could just add something real quick.
Absolutely, Rob.
I think if a NIOSH report or anything of that fact was to specifically mention, and I'll use slicers as an example, I don't think that's a smart move. I think it's dangerous as a fire service that we actually develop one line of thinking and try to apply that to every situation that we go to. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I know it has its place, but what we need to be as a first arriving officer, as an incident commander or a firefighter, is we need to be thinking. And we need to be able to determine that when we roll out that door and we listen to our size up on the radio and we arrive on scene and we take a look at this building, that needs to be able to click in our mind that I have seen this before, I have heard this before, I know this is what's going on, and this is how I'm going to act accordingly. Because too many people are getting, I see it all the time, and I preach to my guys. We have to stop pulling in front of a building that is clearly a 2.5-inch fire and pulling an 1 3/4 pre-connect. We're starting off with a problem right at the beginning. We have to get off that truck, and either the officer, or I don't even have a problem if it's quickly, collectively as a crew, develop a game plan that is applicable to this situation that we roll up on.
You could not have said that better. I'm glad we're recording this because that's worth a mouthful. I think you're right. I think that a lot of people, slicers. I kind of resent some of what I didn't know we needed a new acronym, right? And we paid a lot of money. There was a lot of government money that was doing this, and I have some frustrations on a couple of other levels about this process. But we've been using acronyms in the fire service for a long, long time, and we put them in these. I agree with you. I think Joe Steins, I'd like to hear from Joe again, is that Joe has been saying for a long, long time that the more the fire service tries to make us standard, the more we continue to prove that we are not in fact standard, and I'm going to ask Joe to talk about that for a minute. Let's hear from John again, who's with us. NIOSH reports mostly point to outcomes only and need to focus more on causation. Failures occurred long before the incident, and I certainly do not disagree with that. No. I also was given many lessons myself, and I was using NIOSH reports incorrectly for a long time. Remember that you're looking at a set of circumstances that if you knew the outcome, you know the outcome now. If the guy knew the outcome at the time, do you think he would have taken the same action? You're looking at it in retrospect. That you've got all the answers. The firefighter, he or she, did not have all the answers at the time that it happened. Joe, talk about Rob's point there about standardization. Is that can I use slicers in every fire department, and can I use it all the time for the same thing? This idea of cookie cutter approach. You've got some strong feelings on that.
Yeah, let me turn this down. I don't think there's any possible way of making a standard that would fit the American Fire Service, much less anywhere else. Now, can you have tactical skills that you can apply and learn from the sciences? Absolutely. But when you have muscle memory, you have process step memory that you apply to everything you go to, even if you had 2 or 3 choices, you will eventually hurt yourself. That's the bottom line. And most of the time, the departments, and I have been the same way, I depend on the old sage. I depend on someone who's had the experience, who says, you don't want to do that, son. I think there's a strong possibility that you're going to get hurt. And you have to, we're not standard. As much as we want to say we're standard, we're not standard. We don't go with the same people to the fire. We don't go with the same distance. We don't go with the same apparatus. We don't have the same dysfunctional behaviors. We have different dysfunctional behaviors among us. We have different climates. We have different. What we need to learn is how to apply what we do in the place we do it, with the buildings we have and the things we have. And I don't know if I got to what we were talking about, Chief, but that is, I think anytime you teach a set of steps without fail, if, for instance, there are departments who will write you up if you don't cut a hole in the roof. Now, getting written up because you don't go on the roof on lightweight construction and cutting a hole in it, I got a lot of problems with it. Me personally, in where I was fire chief, we didn't do that. We didn't stand on lightweight construction. But I would not stand here and tell somebody else not to do that. I would tell the department I'm in, if I was the leader, that we're not going to take that particular tactic to that particular problem. Chief Whitley, you might want to talk. You talked a little bit about ballast in the flow path. We talked about this week. We talked about not allowing the flow path to develop. What happens if you're in the leeward side of the structure, making access to the middle of the structure, and something fails and the wind is greater than 8 or 10 miles an hour on the windward side, and all of a sudden now you were in an air intake and now you're in a full exhaust, and you got 8 seconds before that's going to become 1,500 degrees plus. Well, I don't see where any step process we got takes care of that. I really don't.
No, that's like the booby trap. You need to extricate yourself.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I don't know where any process, any step process, takes care of exceptions to the point that when they're critical exceptions that you won't get hurt. So I think anytime we teach a step muscle memory process without teaching the science of it, I think we're in trouble.
All right.
But I don't think we should teach a muscle memory only to extricate our, just like Chief Whitley said, just to we need to learn to do some automatic things to check our air pack to make sure we're fixing a problem. I get it. I understand that. But when we talk about conditions on a fire ground where we're going to put our people inside of an environment that can change simply because of the critical variables of that environment change, I don't think you can have a process. So I don't know if that says what you wanted to say or not. But.
Okay. Well, I will tell you this, Joe. With 7-8 minutes left in the broadcast, you think I'm going to let you start a ballast discussion? You got another thing coming. I just want you to know that.
I'll leave it alone.
Just to be clear. Now, I need some clarification with just a couple minutes left here. John, you're saying standardization of education and practical application will bring unconscious competence. You're short about 3 buzzwords there, brother. I love you dearly, but I understand what you're saying. But does that not just fly in the face of what we just heard? We're standardizing our education and we're standardizing methods, except poor Adam that had to leave the panel responds with 3 people. And maybe, FDNY runs with 31 on a first alarm. So I agree that there is, listen, I'm a training guy. That's what I do. So I get the standardization, but I think when we get into that rote stuff, we may get ourselves in trouble. Tim makes a comment that training is so important to recognize the flow path and avoid the exhaust portion of the flow path. I think that it is important. I think that what happened here, this is Pete's opinion, and it's not based on anything except Pete's opinion. I think that there were some stuff that we were doing that we didn't have a name for. I think that in some cases we understood what we were doing, and I can remember an old captain. I was at a community training one time, and I'm talking about 35 years ago, whatever. And he said, if you open the front door of this closed commercial occupancy and you kick open the front door, you're staring in the mouth of a shotgun.
Loaded shotgun.
That's what he said. And I said, so why is that different than I'm in a unidirectional flow path. I'm in an exhaust flow. That's what he said. He didn't really know that, but that's what he said. So I think that some of the confusion is out there. So listen, folks, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes. What's the positive? What's your what are you wishing for the National Fire Service and Greg International certainly? What is your positive thing that we're going to leave with the listeners that watched us here tonight and will watch us in the future, what's the positives? What could you say to the folks that are viewing us tonight? We've told them what's on our mind. How do we make some thinking firefighters out of the folks that watched us here tonight? Warren, what do you got to say to the viewers tonight that we can leave them on a positive note?
Well, somebody had mentioned the social media arguments. I guess the positive spin on that is people are talking. So mixed into all those arguments and discussion is knowledge is actually being shared. We just got to hopefully ensure that the right knowledge is being shared. But discourse is always good. I just wish that they would take those discussions and try to make them more positive than they are. You know, don't frown at somebody else's thoughts. You know, how do you take positive takeaways from what they've said and add it to what you know?
Right. Good. Solid. Rob, what do you got to say to the viewers? What about any of the topics we talked about tonight?
I think the main thing that everybody needs to realize is that they call this the information age, and it's with good purpose. The amount of information that comes at you on a daily basis is incredible. And I think especially when we deal with the fire service, where it's a matter of life and death of what we do. We don't want to be crawling into a building that we just damn right don't belong in. And we need to understand that. I think everybody needs to be a sorter. And the information comes at you, and you need to sort that information. This is something that I'm going to use right away, or this is something that I'm going to put in the back of my head and I'm going to do a little more research on, or I'm going to ask some questions on, or I'm going to take a class on. I think all the information is good, and it's part of your training to determine if you're going to use it, when you're going to use it, or how you're going to use it. And I think the fact that anything that you read nowadays, whether it be from NIST or UL or anything that you read on the internet, it's all good information, and it does apply in certain circumstances. But I agree with Chief Starnes that the day we come about where somebody goes down a line and say, this is exactly the acronym we're going to use to fight fires, is the day we're going to end up killing a lot of firefighters.
Good. Well said. I also like to make notes. We haven't been on the round table in a long time, but somebody agreeing with Joe Steins. Joe, that's one. You get 9 more, you get a T-shirt. All right. So.
Not only that, I got a check for doing that.
John, what do you got? What do we leave these youngsters as we begin to wrap up?
I like the second what the brother just said. I think he's absolutely right on target with that. We have to have a large toolbox, and we have to sort out which tools we're going to use for particular incidents. And the day we start narrowing our minds is the day we're in trouble. So I agree with him 100%. And I think that's the way we should be going about it. We have a great venue now where we can share information, but we have to watch how we opinionate on that venue, and that's the downside about the social media, obviously. But we didn't have that opportunity 30 years ago, Pete. Just think of where we could have went with it if we had.
Yeah.
But certainly, keep a large toolbox and use it accordingly.
Okay. Joe Steins, what do you got? What do you want to leave us with, Joe?
Just the one, I guess, what is it, your one thing, Chief?
Yeah, just one more thing, right.
One more thing. Take what you do every day and look at what people are saying the science says and see if it hurts you or helps you. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
If they say this hurts you, then go look at how many times you do it and see if you can figure it out. You owe it to your people, if they say it hurts you, to go figure it out. If they say it helps you and you're not doing it, you owe it to your people to go figure it out. That's all. You don't have to do it. You don't have to write SOPs. You just have to figure it out. And I think that's the monkey that's on the leadership's back right now.
All right. Greg, what do you got? Muted.
Twice in one night. Look at that. I'm going to push to everybody's the safety officer line, and it got brought up before, but if you're at the top looking down, you got to make sure you don't have people in the unconscious incompetence box. I mean, in my world, that's my big red flag. I'm always looking for guys who think they know what they're looking at when they really don't.
Right, right. Ethan, quick one as we begin to wrap up. What do you got?
Keep studying, keep training, keep researching, check the resume, check the instructor, and keep up with what's going on.
Good stuff. And the final word there, Chief Joe?
Well, I think this is kind of like everybody keeps talking about tools and toolboxes. And one of the first things when you buy a home, your parents or whatever buy you a toolbox with the basic tools. And then you grow and you get more experience. And what my thing is that if you're a brand new firefighter or a brand new officer, the basic tools in your toolbox have got to be building construction and fire spread. That's where it starts. And I think sometimes all these things with slicing and dicing and UL and NIST stuff takes away a lot of your brain cells that need to be spent on the building, on the battleground. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, so that ends this week's episode. We were a little bit over our time, but that's okay. We're good. We will be here next week. We have a close call next week, so I asked the viewers out there to share that out on social media. The show will be back next week, 8 p.m. Eastern. Spread it around. Chief Pernesti is going to talk about a close call incident involving a church situation. And if there are any questions about what's going on, you can reach me, pete@peteliam.com. You've got a voicemail number, and you can find me on Twitter at @PeteLam. Stay safe, and we will see you again next week.